This thing is menstruation. It's huge amounts of human vibrations. Religion versus spirituality. I mean, sex sells, right?
And turns you into peanut butter.
My parents' divorce was like a biracial slap in the face. Before home was two houses, I never thought about being half Balinese and half Norwegian, or how that was actually two different cultures. As a little girl, saying, "Hi, I'm Tia, I'm Balinese Norwegian," was like anyone else saying, "I'm from America," or "I'm German." It was always one world, one culture, one life. During this divorce process, I took the classic older sibling role, walking around all tough, pretending everything was okay. And in fact, I remember being 13, sitting in a room with my sisters, and they were both crying and crying from the magnitude of this whole situation. And I was sitting there thinking, don't you cry, you're not allowed to cry. I thought I had to shoulder all this pain we were going through. I never realized the effect it would have on me later on. Because of this, I became more of a closed-off person, preferring to keep everything within. And within, there had been a sort of rupture. Well, on the outside, it was mom's house 1 week, dad's house 1 week. Mom's house 2 weeks, dad's house another 2 weeks. On the inside, it was, this week, you are Indonesian, follow the right protocols. This week, you are a Westerner, follow the right protocols. And let's not forget the influence I was getting from a school with a bunch of international kids, from diverse backgrounds. It just added to the confusion of things. It was a different Tia at my mom's house and the Tia at my dad's house and the Tia at school. And it was 3 cultures, 3 worlds, 3 lives. I struggled to find a sense of acceptance, a sense of belonging in all these different worlds. And I felt I was always too Eastern for the West or too Western for the East. I know it sounds like it completely tore my world apart, but it did give me a subject for my Greenstone, so there's a silver lining in this. I wanted to find out if there was anyone else who feels this way, anyone else who struggled as much as I did, to find a sense of belonging. Thus began my journey. Let's define belonging. I'm going to be honest, it took me this first 6 months of this, project to just define this, because there's so many different definitions and interpretations, and someone could probably make a whole Greenstone on the definition of belonging. The first website I looked at simply said, belonging is when an individual feels accepted through the relationships made with other individuals, groups, or family. Easy enough. The second website I looked at splits it into 3 different types of belonging. You have belonging to a relationship, which is how you belong with your family, or your friends, or your pet, your partner. And then you have social belonging, which is how you belong to a group, an organization, or your teams. And then you have environmental belonging, which is, are you an Australian, Chinese, do you prefer the country, the city, or an island? Basically, what I got from this was belonging means a sense of acceptance and welcome to someone, some group, some place, something. And I thought, okay, easy enough, and spent the next 4.5 years of my life doing what I thought that meant. I shaped my personality to what I thought my friends wanted, trying to find this. I thought, if peanut butter and jelly can belong, I can belong. Getting into high school, things became a little more difficult, because it wasn't just about belonging to your friend groups, it was about belonging to the bigger high school community. And I just wanted to fit in, so I started talking a lot, but then I came off as, really annoying, and all my friends were like, oh, stop talking so much. So I kept my head down, and I was hoping that one day the bigger kids, being the wise, older, knowledgeable kids that they are, would see I was struggling with this belonging into high school, and they'd come up to me and talk to me. And then one day it happened. One of the 12th graders, who would later become one of my good friends, came up to me as I was sitting at lunch alone, and he goes, you come off as completely arrogant, right? And I asked him, why? And he goes, because you don't talk to anyone. It's like you think you're better than us or something. So it seemed that when I was talking too much, I was annoying, and then when I wasn't talking enough, I was arrogant, and no one seemed to accept me for the way I was. No matter what I did, I wasn't accepted. Because I just wanted to fit in. And that was my mistake. During the research process of my Greenstone, I came upon my saving grace, which came in the form of this TED Talk presented by a woman named Dr. Brene Brown. And she talks about how fitting in is actually the greatest barrier to belonging. In her words, she says fitting in is assessing situations and groups of people, then twisting yourself into a human pretzel in order to get them to let you to hang out with them. Belonging is something else entirely. It is showing up, letting yourself be seen and known as you are, and being accepted for it. So why is it so important? Why would we sacrifice our own identities to find that sense of belonging? Let's take a look at it from a psychological perspective. This is called Maslow's hierarchy of needs, made by a psychologist named Dr. Abraham Maslow, and he talks about how these are the levels that needs to be met for a person to reach their full potential. The first level is being the most important needs first. So you have your basic needs, which is food, water, shelter, and warmth, and then you have security and safety needs. But right after you have all those basic needs, a person would search for love and belonging needs. This low level of in the pyramid indicates that we always search for belonging. Is really important to us to find right after we have safety and security. In fact, belonging is actually directly linked to your motivation, your health, and your happiness. That is, moments of exclusion can cause damage to your well-being and intellect. Besides this, belonging also increases meaning in life, because this continuity, this permanence makes sense to people. And the opposite is also true. If you feel excluded, you find less meaning in life. And I thought, well, it's so important, I should probably find my sense of belonging. Because the divorce had also kept me more hidden, and I wasn't only shutting myself off to the people, I was shutting myself off to myself. So I decided to start a personal project, and Dr. Brene Brown talks about being vulnerable, showing yourself to people, and I thought, okay, Tia, today you are going to be vulnerable. I know, right? What a well-planned project with such clear end goals. But that's what I did. And while vulnerability to some is maybe submitting your first resume, or asking that person out on a date, or going up to that group of friends you always wanted to be a part of, or telling someone you love them, for me it was the classic one. Feelings. Growing up as a Norwegian, you don't really tell anyone you have feelings. And as I said, the after effects of the divorce had kept me more to myself. So step one, let those feelings in. And no joke, the first day I did this, I started crying. And my friend Will can testify to this. I was sitting under the table and he goes, Tia, what are you doing? And I go, oh, I'm being vulnerable. And he goes, okay, I'm being vulnerable. I was going to let myself wallow in sadness if I had to, revel in happiness if I had to, and if I was going to fall in love, I was going to do it deeply. Maybe. So step one was done. I had let the feelings in. I felt more refreshed and cleansed. But I was only being vulnerable to myself. I hadn't been vulnerable to other people. So that was the next step. I had to reveal my true thoughts and passions, and I wasn't going to care if I was judged. And if I was going to lose my friends, so be it. This is easier said than done. We still feel a little unnerved when we're vulnerable to people, because there's this sense that we're going to lose our closest people, our friends, our family. So I made every interaction I had a mindfulness session. I thought, does saying your true thoughts to someone like this right now make you uncomfortable? Say it. I became so good at being vulnerable, it wasn't vulnerability anymore. And in fact, there was a moment where my mind went, oh my gosh, just stop telling everyone how you feel. And I don't remember the exact day I felt that change. But I remember looking back and wondering, why am I not trying to find belonging anymore? Because I felt like I belonged. And I realized my true personality was not far off from the one I had been carrying. I just had to carry it with more confidence. And by being more open, you don't lose friends, you actually gain them, because this vulnerability, this breaking down of your walls, creates a connection with people, and it is this connection that creates belonging. I had discovered something in this personal journey of mine, but I couldn't exactly put my finger on what it was. Luckily, I went to India. It seems like it's completely unrelated, but spiritual groups do this one thing, and that it is that they create this culture of belonging. That is, it's a place where people can easily belong. They just find that belonging in spiritual groups, So I started discussions with people there, and I remember the exact conversation where someone was drawing a conclusion and I was coming up with an epiphany, and it was that in spiritual belonging, your belonging is within, you're belonging to this higher cause. So when you're trying to belong, you have to belong to yourself. Essentially, what belonging comes down to is love. I know it sounds really cliche, but belonging at its most basic is the love and acceptance you have for yourself. And it's not something you can just get like that, it's a whole process. In spiritual groups, it's about the process of finding your connection to that higher cause, and in belonging, it's about the process of finding that connection to yourself. In fact, your level of acceptance and belonging directly correlates, your level of acceptance directly correlates with your level of belonging. Because when you believe that you're enough, you have this courage to show people your imperfections, to be a little vulnerable, and you can prove your authenticity to people. And when belonging is within, everything else feels like it belongs to you. So I encourage you all to stop trying to fit in and aim to belong instead. Trust me, it's much more rewarding when you put your truth on the table and let people who want to take it, take it. Love yourself, accept yourself, believe that you're enough, because I want you all to leave this room knowing that you are worthy of love and belonging. Thank you.